So a couple of days ago, I shared on 9 curses that most Christians are struggling with. And that was very interesting. That was something I think I want to jump back into and talk about again. Now, when we talk about curses, and I explained this in the previous one, I explained that a curse is a recurring thing, a recurring pattern. And I talked about the 3 different types of pattern. And if you haven't caught that conversation yet, I want to encourage you to go and watch that first. Right. So today I'm going to be giving you another list of 9, maybe 10 similar things, and that you can actually look into and deal with in your life if it is there. Number 1. I want to talk about the spirit of bitterness, the spirit of bitterness. Now, in the Bible, there's a story about a small place called Mara. In this place called Mara, something phenomenal happened. The water got incredibly bitter, and they ended up going to call the prophet to come. So we read the story of Elisha going in there, and he came with to cure this place because bitterness had ensued in that place. And the water, no matter what people did to it, they tried to treat it, they tried to do this and that to it, and no matter what they did, it kept being bitter. Now, what a lot of people don't know is this. Now, just a few chapters, a few books prior to this discussion in there was a small place down the road called Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, in this place called Sodom and Gomorrah, God rained judgment upon that place. Homosexuality and all that weird stuff that was just going in there, and they had become so wicked that God executed divine judgment upon that place. To date, even right now as we speak, on the same place where this happened, you can still find big pieces like this of sulfur that fell from heaven to burn that place. Someone sent me on a side note, right? On a side note, somebody wrote a message on my YouTube saying that the Bible is full of contradictions and stuff like that. So remember, these are allegoric stories. These are just allegories. It's just stories to help us learn lessons. And that is the absolute biggest load of rubbish. A lot of people have been taught this thing. It is untrue. And I believe that if you believe that the Bible has contradictions, it means you are poorly taught, because there is not a single thing in the Bible that has not been proven by science and proven by history. And so we will be able easily to do that. And I think that one of the biggest needs right now is that we stop doing apologetics from the sense of just trying to patch things up, but really genuinely study and share the word with people. But in any case, let's go back there. This issue has been proven through history that this actually happened, and right now, according to history and science, right now is the only place in the world where you will still find big chunks of sulfur. That place has been barren since then. Now, I want you to understand something. When rain then falls over Sodom and Gomorrah, this land that no longer exists, what happens is this water filters down to a small place called Mara. Now, when it gets to this place called Mara, something happens. All the water there becomes bitter because it's moved there. It is a consequence of divine judgment. There are certain people, and I've met some of these people, whose life is just bitter all that time. There's just something wrong with me in my life, and for some reason, I keep experiencing bitterness. My life is bitter. And so what you need to deal with the assignment of bitterness in your life is what we call a prophetic assignment. A prophetic assignment comes in there, and it is sent then to deal with the bitterness that is in that place, that is caused by divine judgment executed on another or executed on you. There are certain people that are the victims of divine judgment, whether caused by them or by another. They are now then subject to what we call bitterness. It's experiencing and getting a lot of bitterness in your life. And bitterness is broken by the prophetic assignment. Number 2, infirmity. Infirmity. This is constant sickness of the body. Constant sickness of the body. I know a lady who is constantly sick with very complex, weird diseases and afflictions that don't make sense. And it's not just one thing. It's better if it was just cancer and you've been battling cancer your whole life. That's different. But these are people who struggle with just all kinds and manner of weird sicknesses in different places for different reasons or whatever. Or you have this one sickness that is reigning so strongly in your life without explanation. Doctors can't give you an answer. People don't know what's going on. People have been trying to talk to you about it, but there's nothing. You've seen every single person there. Your relatives have asked you, okay, let's just go to a witch doctor. Let's go there and let's go there because you are struggling with a spirit of infirmity. In the Bible, we read the story of the woman with the issue of blood, constant discharge of blood in there, and she was unclean all the time. It becomes an inconvenience to your life. It becomes a separation from any normal sense of normalcy whatsoever. There's no normalcy in your life because essentially you are struggling with the spirit of infirmity and disease, sickness and disease. Mind you, and I want you to understand this, if you actually read your Bible concerning in the book of Revelations, you'll find something on some of the last horsemen that will reign. Death and hell are one of them, and one of the biggest agencies of death and hell is sickness and infirmity. And so you must understand that in the end times, one of the biggest challenges we're going to be dealing with even now is the assignment of death and hell, which is infirmity, sickness, brokenness, and so forth and so forth. So this is actually one thing that a lot of Christians need to pray for. It is the desire of God for you to be healed. It is the desire of God for you to be healed. And for that reason, the curse of infirmity can be broken through prayer as well. All right. Number 3, what we call confusion, the spirit of confusion. I've seen people who just are confused. There is just never a good decision. And most of what's happening in your life is the consequence of just utter and absolute confusion. You are just a mess. You find the person that you love and you want to marry, and just when you're about to make a decision, someone comes in and confuses you. And now you can make a good decision, and you couldn't get married because you were just confused at the point of decision making to say, I want to commit my life to this person. And a distraction came into your life to distract you from what would have been a good, godly marriage. Some people, even while you're in marriage, you just have genuine, weird confusion. Some of you have this in your career, some of you have this in all of this, and it leads you to making bad decisions or not making a decision at all. So you have paralysis in making a decision because you constantly have the spirit of confusion. That's why the Bible says a double-minded person accomplishes nothing. And so some of you are trying, it's an African proverb actually that says that you cannot chase 2 rabbits and catch them. So most of us are caught because we are double-minded. We are confused. We are, stuck. You have nothing going on for you in terms of making an absolute focus decision. And for that reason, most of what's happening in your life is actually the result of a spirit, an assignment of confusion. The next one that we find is what we call bewitchment. The curse of bewitchment. Paul uses this, and he is speaking to the Galatians, and when he's talking to the Galatians, he says, you foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? Bewitchment is essentially being enticed by something. It is being manipulated, being controlled, being dominated by somebody. It means that a loss of control in terms of making decisions or being capable of doing something by yourself. I want you to understand something, and I'm going to make a clip out of this next few words that come out of my mouth and put them in a different video so somebody can actually read it and understand it. Bewitchment is not only just hocus pocus and voodoo and stuff like that. That's not what bewitchment is. Instead, bewitchment is when something has taken your agency, your ability to make a decision and to be able to execute that decision on your own. When that happens, it means that you're operating under an assignment of bewitchment. We're going to clarify this even more, all right? Ahab was a victim of Jezebel, but people don't realize something phenomenal about Ahab. Ahab was simply under her control financially, right? Some man, the king of Israel at that point in time, realized that his kingdom was small, but the Phoenician kingdom was a world superpower of their time. And so he thought to himself, if I marry my son to the princess of Phoenicia, then this union could also allow the transfer of wealth, Then you can get a tender, you can get connected to these people, you can get deals and opportunities. And if I do this, then I will plug my son so his kingdom will be better. So the decision he made during that time was, I am going to connect my son with this chick. Big problem. Why? Because whoever has money is in charge. So Jezebel, because she was financially in charge, with more money over Ahab, she then caused decisions to be made that supported her viewpoints, her worldview, her religious beliefs. And so what you started seeing was the infiltration of false idols in Israel, simply because she was the one with money. Money is a tool for control, manipulation, domination. And as soon as that creeps in anywhere, and someone has that kind of control, then it's easy for them to exert that authority to destroy your life. Should you ever find yourself incapable of making good decisions, should you ever find yourself incapable of making the right decisions for your life, and because an agency either has seduced you into a certain decision, has motivated you to doing that, has manipulated you into doing that, has controlled you into doing that, you are operating under the assignment of bewitchment. And that's where that comes in. When Paul was speaking to the Galatians, he was actually talking about the doctrines that were now infiltrating the church through other people coming in to teach, because some people know how to use good words. They know how to excite you and entice you and tell you sweet things about what you believe until your whole frame of thinking is fashioned in a certain type of way. And now you do not have the right agency to make the right decisions. And if you are stuck under such either it's a relationship, even if it's money, or it's something that is being used to control you, you're operating under the assignment or the curse of bewitchment. The next one you will find is people who plant seeds and never eat them. These are people who plant and never harvest. It's phenomenal because this curse was actually spoken in the book of Joel. It was spoken in the book of Joel. He says, you will plant vineyards and never eat your vineyards. You will plant crop and never eat of it. There are certain people that have a habit of starting things, but they never are around to enjoy the benefit of what they've done. I have seen in many instances people who started businesses sold out because it was hectic, and as soon as they left, the business started to make money. I actually know one instance where someone asked to be, I don't want to be part of this business. I want to get out. I want to go and live my life elsewhere. And as soon as they did that, the business blew up, and the people that were left in it made a lot of money from it. That's a curse that operates when you plant, but you're not allowed to eat the harvest of that. It's a very, very terrible assignment, as an assignment of planting but never enjoying the fruit of what you have planted or invested into. Now, I'm going to talk about this one because it's actually one of the most popular ones anyway. This is something we call spiritual spouses. Spiritual spouses. I don't want to talk about this one because a lot of people, it's actually very prevalent. A lot, especially in the Christian culture, it's very, very prevalent. There's a man who was with his wife, and he did not like his wife. He did not want to be around his wife. And every single time, this incredibly gorgeous woman, I'm not afraid to say so, I've seen incredibly beautiful women who are mistreated by their husbands because he keeps saying, you are a prostitute. You are sleeping around. I don't trust you. There's no faith between us. And she couldn't understand where this is coming from. She didn't understand where it's coming from. And as a result, their relationship was almost getting to a conclusion because this man genuinely felt that my wife is cheating on me. On prayer and all that stuff, they then discover there's a presence of a spiritual spouse in this equation. And by dealing with this spiritual spouse, this man suddenly realizes, this is my wife. She's beautiful, she's attentive, she's mine, and she doesn't belong to anybody else. Because even though some people are not spiritually sensitive to know what is the problem, they at least know that something is wrong. So what he was doing was he was sensing the presence of a spiritual spouse in this home and this family, in this wife's life. And so what begins to happen then is through the prayer of renunciation, canceling all of these things, you find that certain spiritual spouses are broken. Some people were dedicated to uncles, dedicated to mediums, dedicated to certain things when they were children. And they were told, especially in the African culture, this child, we are giving her to you. She's a wife to your family. And that confession that has been made to a little girl, and even an infant or even a toddler that has been used to redeem a debt in the African cultures or whatever, if it has been given to redeem some kind of debt, and when that happens immediately, then you are now consecrated or dedicated to that family line as a wife. Okay? In some instances, hectic instances, uncles that just like claiming you as their wives. In the African culture, we have this habit, and it's a terrible one, where we say, this one is my wife, this one is my wife. And I'm learning now, even now with my children, to create healthy boundaries around people saying, oh no, that's my wife. That's not your wife. I don't want that. Some people have said, this one, she must marry our son. I said, no, that's not true. This one is kept. And most importantly, for those of you who dated a lot in your years, some of you made terrible confessions to your lovers then. You told him you would love him and only him. He was meant for you. He is the only one for you. You are the only one for me. I would die if you left me. I'm yours and you are mine. You made confessions tantamount to marriage to somebody else. And now later on, when you are in your own marriage or relationship, you are already married. You slept with somebody else and you made hectic confessions to that person. And you told that person that I will love you forever. You will have my heart all the time. And now they are in a marriage. There are still confessions that you made that you never got to renounce. And going back to renounce those things is important. It is very important, especially in the presence of spiritual spouses. Some of us are tied, whether soul ties or whatever, to other people that are existing, that are living, or in confessions and statements that we said as well. I'm not going to spend time on that. That needs its own time. Second from last, I'm going to do 2 more. I think that's 8. The devourer. Now, I'm going to do a whole discussion on tithing because tithing is a mess, right? And I genuinely teach a lot about that, and I've avoided that topic for a long time because I want to have a true sit down concerning the discussion of tithing and share everything. By the way, it's not a Christian practice per se. This is a Mesopotamian practice that started right in the beginning, but there's a lot of meaning to it, and I'm going to teach a lot about the history of tithing. Is tithing important? Should we tithe? What happens when you don't tithe? And so forth and so forth. But in the discussions of tithing, God talks about something called the devourer. And if you tithe, I will rebuke the devourer. That's a system that steals, that eats, that takes from yield. So when you've harvested something and you put it in your field and you guys are ready to eat it, the devourer is what takes from the place of yield. Now, this is a system that is very present and at work with a lot of Christians, and a lot of them, because a lot of cool pastors, right, are starting to teach this message that says tithing is a terrible idea. It's an Old Testament principle and so forth and so forth. I disagree, and I'm going to explain why in that video that I'm going to do. And I'm going to talk about why tithing is important. Because tithing is not just about you giving to God. Tithing is about you belonging to a community that you contribute towards. It's phenomenal, isn't it, that the Bible says something crazy. It says, cursed is the man that muzzles an ox. Cursed is a man that muzzles an ox. So if you put a muzzle is this thing that holds your mouth down. An ox, while you use this ox around your house, the Bible places a curse upon you. One of the biggest issues that I have with tithing, apart from the spiritual stuff that has been mentioned by a lot of people and all the claims about the Old Testament and the law and everything, one of the things that I find very phenomenal about tithing is this. We go to buildings we didn't pay for. We go to churches where other people pay for our coffee and tea. You don't know who paid for your chair. You don't know who paid for the praise and worship team that's up there. Everything is done for you. You receive spiritual benefit from a place, but you're not willing to invest financially into that place. It doesn't make any sense to me. That is the makings of a curse. And I want you to hear me well, and I'll say this as loudly and as clearly as I can so you can hear me. If you are a Christian that genuinely finds no fault with sitting in a building you didn't pay for, in a place where people have come together and money has been spent for your purpose, for your edification, for your growth, and you have zero questions about contributing financially towards that, you are cursed. It means you have no problem using something for your benefit without actually letting it benefit from that. This is a curse that operates even in the black culture. Because our taxis are run down until this thing is laying down inside like this, but it's still driving in the road. But you'll never see that taxi driver go to repair his car. They don't do that because for us, we like to use things without reinvesting in them. It's phenomenal, isn't it, that you can benefit spiritually from somebody and still have demands from that person and never be a blessing to them. This is why a lot of Christians are struggling with the system of the devourer. God then ties a blessing. See if you do this and if I will not rebuke the devourer. Isn't it phenomenal that the premise of rebuking a devourer is essentially tied It's essentially tied to your ability to be a contributor to houses. Now, I say this, and I'll say it again. Tithing goes into houses, right? So contributions go into houses. But I would never walk in my house. If I left my house early in the morning and I went out and about and I was working and everything, and I left, there was no money, there was nothing, there was no groceries, no food. And I came back home and I found my fridge packed full of meat and food and everything. And I would just eat. I would ask big questions. Where did this money come from? Where did this food come from? How did this stuff get here, right? I wouldn't eat comfortably because at the end of the day, that's stuff that has found my way into its house. We come from communities that we are not a blessing towards. We come from places that we are not a blessing towards. And we somehow expect God to bless us when we are consumers. The biggest curse that operates, especially in the African demographic, is the curse of the devourer, because most of you are consumers who don't bless what you earn, what you benefit from. You don't invest back in your business, and that's why your business never grows. You don't invest back into the people that invest in your life. That's why they stop. That's why many of you are now alone, because people get tired. You are a leech, to say the least, and for that reason, you operate with the assignment of a devourer in your life where nothing grows. We'll talk about the devourer later. But the devourer essentially is a bucket, a leak in the bucket. And that's why your car always breaks down and you have to repair it. And every cent that you have goes into your car. That's why you buy brand new clothes, and when you iron them, you burn them. That's why you get something new and your kid breaks it. You bought a brand new phone and your baby threw it in the water and the phone is completely gone. And for some reason, your whole life is spent patching holes in a bucket, and you keep putting in there and you don't understand why it keeps falling apart, because there's a devourer at work in your life, and that's what a devourer is. And most people that are operating under curses, that one is the biggest one for Christians. Now, that needs a whole discussion. Like I said, I promise you, I will definitely do a discussion on tithing. My friend asked me to do it, and I've been avoiding it, but I will do it. And yes, I'm pro tithing. And we will talk about it in the word. And yes, has it been abused? Absolutely. Have people given into houses that abuse those funds and pastors that abuse those funds? True. But still, rather find a good place to invest, a place that feeds you spiritually, a house that you belong to, that you put your tithe into, rather than saying, oh, I don't tithe because that was under the law. Demonic programming. Demonic programming is very, very close to the idea that I shared earlier about bewitchment, right? But this is actually slightly different. Now, in bewitchment, we are talking about an agency, a person, and so forth, because basically they are imposing their will upon you to act or to behave in a certain type of way. But when we're talking about demonic programming, we're talking about a certain pattern of teaching that is programmed within a person to behave a certain type of way. So this is a demonic agency that works particularly to begin to program a certain type of thing. This exists in a generation. This exists in a time. This exists in an era, and it exists in a generation in which there are certain programming that has been done, and these are the establishment of strongholds, demonic strongholds that become generational. We have talked a lot about this in many instances. I think I actually have a video on how strongholds are formed. Please check that out, and we'll talk about that as well. But a lot of us are programmed to react, to behave, to do in a certain type of way. And that has then an implication in how you live your life, because you are programmed with an inclination to behave that way. And so that's what we call demonic programming. And a lot of us then struggle, because no matter how much of the word you get, it doesn't change your programming. You are stuck around that stronghold. You're stuck around a way of thinking that has become so tantamount to how you live your life and how you express even your faith, how you live your life. And this is why even when I share messages on the culture. I'm trying to break strongholds in the culture. And because I realize, and this is something God spoke to me a long time ago, He said that you need to do 4 things. You need to break, you need to destroy, and then you need to rebuild the culture. Because ultimately, what's keeping people bound is the culture. So my responsibility, my job, even right now as I share the word of God, is to set people free that are bound by the culture. And so for a lot of us, the programming came from the culture. And demonic forces, demonic assignments have worked very hard to keep you trapped in the wrong culture through programming. And this programming has become a repeated stronghold that you are unwilling to shake. Your views on marriage, your views on the world, your views on finance keep you stuck, and you cannot make progress. It's become a curse in your life. And I've said this to people before. When we talk about curses, we're not talking about spiritual things. We are talking about even programming taught to us by other people. I struggled to save. I want to be honest with you about this. I struggled a lot to save, to start a culture of saving money, because I didn't come from a culture of saving money. You know, in the black culture, we do this to our children. What do you need? I need ice cream. Okay, how much do you need? It's 10 Rand. Okay, here's 10 Rand, go and buy ice cream. You don't actually recognize that, but you have programmed your children to live from hand to mouth, to get enough of what they need to do that. We have programmed our children to live beyond their means. We have programmed them to do that. And so we are now working in this generation to break generational curses that came as a result of our upbringing, where now we are teaching our children to say, oh, do you want to buy a bike? Okay, no, it's fine. Do your chores, do this, do that, and we will pay you this much money per week, and you have a place and responsibilities within the home. And when you do fulfill your responsibilities within your home, you will be paid your salary and save up for what you want to buy. It's great for me as a parent because yes, now I have means. I can easily go and buy the bike for this child, but they don't know what it's like to invest time into it. And so what we realize is every single time we buy toys for our children, they break the same day because to them, it costs them nothing to get. And so the practice now of earning, you know, my youngest has money and she knows she's the richest because she doesn't spend as much as the older ones, right? And so when they know I spent weeks raising money to buy this bike, I will treat it with better care. I won't leave it outside because every other toy we bought, it will be left outside in the rain. It's an electronic and now it's no longer working the following day and it's been in the sun for days and so forth because it's easy to acquire it because daddy bought it for me. So we are teaching them and reframing how to think because we are trying to undo our own programming so we don't have to pass on generational curses of poverty and a certain way of thinking to our children that will harm them. I think that's a lot for today, right? We'll stop there today. God bless you.